What's happening? It's Ben Sheppard here and welcome back to RunThrough TV. Alright, today's conversation is with James Nobles. James has just come off the back of winning one of the world's toughest mountain races, the Dragon's Back. This is a full unedited conversation and it was really amazing to get some of James's thoughts just a couple of weeks removed from winning that race. I hope you enjoy it here on RunThrough TV.
So I am James Nobles. I have just taken part in the 2022 Dragon's Back race and happened to come out the other side and win it.
For people that don't know, just give a little bit of a background to exactly what the Dragon's Back is.
So the Dragon's Back is a 6-day event where you cover around about, I think on average, 40 miles a day. So across the 6 days, you do 240 miles. I think you do somewhere in the region of like 56,000 feet of climbing. So something like twice the height of Everest during the week. And you go all the way from Conwy Castle in North Wales down to Cardiff Castle in South Wales. And there was, I think, about 250-ish people taking part in it this year, at least on the start line anyway.
In terms of expectation, you obviously came out of it with a result that is amazing. What did you think going into it? Did you think that there was a chance that you were going to be able to win it, or where was kind of your head at?
I'd trained up so that I'd never really taken part in like one of these sort of big multi-day events before. So I trained up like hoping that I'd done everything I could to maybe like compete. But I hadn't run against any sort of the top guys before. But yeah, in my head, I had done all the training that I possibly could to give myself the best chance I had of maybe, I was aiming for a podium place if I could do that. And then anything beyond that was going to be a massive bonus.
What kind of drew you to that then? You said this was your first kind of big multi-day thing. What drew you to having a bash at the multi-day type race?
Well, I've had, so I had a couple of friends, like they had both done it. So one of them did it in 2019, the other one did it last year. And hearing those guys chat about it, you start getting like a little bit of an itch and you think, okay, this might be something that I like to do. Initially, when they spoke about it, I thought, no, they're absolutely mad. Like, there's no
I'm
chance.
not doing it.
Yeah, there's no chance I'm going to ever do anything like that. But then all of a sudden, I was like volunteering at the event last year to try to get a bit of a feel for what it was like. And as soon as I'd finished the volunteering, that was it. My name was in the hat. And yeah, had a go at it this year.
What is your running background then? Like, why did you start running? What's the story behind that?
I used to play like lots of rugby, and then as I went to university, I stopped playing rugby. I just decided I needed something to help me keep fit. And so I just started doing like recreational running right from probably like 2009. And then that's all I was doing, just recreational running, probably up until 2018. I'd done like a few sort of road half marathons and things like that, but mainly all my running was like off-road. And then 2018 or 19, one of my friends, he sort of said, right, I'm going to do the Bob Graham round in the Lake District. He asked me if I wanted to help him on one of the legs. And I said, yeah, I'll give it a go. And ever since that, like I've been absolutely hooked into sort of this kind of like long distance mountain running. I just love being out in the mountains, and love being around all these kind of people as well, probably more so than anything. They're just a very good bunch of people.
It's weird, isn't it? Because when you kind of immerse yourself in a new world, and you would have had it in team sport with rugby, I've got kind of the same story in terms of how I properly got into running was through team sport, played a lot of rugby, went to uni, played a bit of rugby, got injured, then couldn't really go back to rugby and thought like kind of what can I do to keep fit firstly, and then to kind of have that sort of that team feel as well, which is kind of weird when you talk about running because people think it's such an individual thing. But when you immerse yourself in that world, like you just mentioned, particularly that sort of fell running world, there is that camaraderie that you do get in team sports as well that people don't really think about.
Yeah, it is absolutely there. Like, it might not necessarily be there like when you're like actually competing like in the events, because it is like you spend an awful lot of time in these events on your own, maybe not chatting to people, but everything that sits around it, like the training, all down here. I've got like a brilliant group of friends that like I do loads of training with before these kind of running events, after the events. Like there's just such a good community spirit around ultra running, mountain running. I don't really know too much about road running because I don't do any of that, but definitely in these sorts of types of running, the people are just brilliant, and they're just so supportive of each other.
I read your Instagram post talking about like the fact that you literally scoured the world for anything Dragon's Back related pre-race, and spoke to mates and whatever. When it was getting closer and closer and closer, obviously you had trained up to this point. Was the anxiety kicking in about this race? Was it something that you were kind of nervous about? Obviously you wanted to know exactly kind of how everything went. So how did you feel going to Conwy and going to the start line?
I felt quite good actually going into it, because I didn't have there were no expectations on me as such to be doing anything in particular. Like I suppose my wife, like she probably expected me at least to finish it, and then and also my friends probably expected me to finish it, but there's nothing big sitting around it expectation wise, and I'm quite good at like just maintaining like sort of fairly level emotions, if that makes sense. I don't typically get too excited about stuff, and I don't get too like anxious about things either. So which is good and bad. Like I'm maybe not the best person to have at a party, but when it comes to doing these things, like I can kind of maintain a pretty level head, which is good. So yeah, that really helps. That really helps.
And when did it become sort of a reality that you thought, I'm in a good position here, like this could be something that I could potentially win?
The winning bit didn't really sink in or feel like it would be real up until genuinely like 5 miles from the end, because so one of the other people who was still in the race on the last day was Chris Cope, and he had like an absolute storming first 3 days. And I think he struggled a little bit on day 4 and day 5, but it was always in the back of my head that he's probably a lot better at running on the roads than I am, or at least on the flat than I am. The last day is relatively like you do very little climbing. It's quite quick. I'm not quick on that stuff. And I was just waiting for, and he was running without a shirt on, so I was just waiting for this like topless man to like come past me. But yeah, it just didn't happen. So when I got 5 miles from the end, I had a 50-minute buffer, I think it was, like going into that last day. So I was pretty confident that if he passed me with 5 miles to go, he wasn't going to shave off 50 minutes as well thereafter. So it was about that point when I started to realize, actually, maybe I've got this in the bag now. And then all of this just, stuff came like flooding through.
I think the Dragon's Back is so different to a one-day ultra, or an ultra that you start and you go through the night, 100-miler or even 150-mile. I know there are some 200s now in the UK as well. The fact that you stop down and you stay, and like you say, it's a multi-day, you obviously get to know people a little bit more, people you're sharing tents with, people you're speaking to out on the course. What is that process like of like, in your mind, kind of psyching yourself up that you're going to have to finish this day, camp essentially, and get up and then do it all again? Does it feel quite overwhelming, or is it one of those things that it kind of goes quite quickly?
In hindsight, it goes really quickly. Like you think back, you're like, God, like I've just done 6 days of running. But I think at the time, like well, at least I was like, you're just taking it on a day by day basis. Like I was like pretty like sort of rigorous in like what I wanted to do when I got into camp. So I had like almost a list of things like that I needed to do when I got into camp in order to like get myself ready for the next day. So it was all stuff from like, I don't know, putting compression leggings on, using the roller on my legs, like getting loads of Diorite in me to like try rehydrate and stuff. So I had this like process that I had to go through when I got into camp. And like whilst like all of the tent mates were absolutely brilliant, like I loved the time with them, I was also trying my best just to keep, like, even when you're in the camp, just to try to keep focused on why I was there and like what I was trying to achieve, and just not spend, because it's quite easy just to spend probably all evening if you wanted to, just in like the food tent, chatting to people, having a really good time. But there were other things that you also need to be kind of cracking on with every evening to make sure you're ready to go the next day.
And I guess to make sure that you're focused on that like overarching goal, which was finishing to start with, getting the podium, and then obviously by the end, like you said, winning the race. When you did realize in that last 5 miles, I've got this, like there's going to be no topless bloke whizzing past me in a sec, what was your emotion in that moment, and then taking me through then that finish line?
It was pretty strong, if I'm honest. Like I hadn't really, like, as I was saying before, like I'm quite flatlining on the emotion scale. But like, so I hadn't really like dwelled on anything too much up until that point. But I don't know, there's like, when you kind of think back across all the training that you've done and all of the sacrifices that you've probably had to make, and it's not just personal sacrifices, it's like sacrifices on the family, sacrifices on, say, potentially like friends and doing social things, like all of that kind of like builds up, and you realize like just how much has probably gone into something like this. And I'm sure it's the same for anyone, no matter where you finish really in the Dragon's Back race. There's a hell of a lot of effort that goes into like even getting to the start line for these kind of things. And so that, to me, just like when I got within 5 miles of the end, it just sort of bubbled up, and you start like realizing like, yeah, this may happen here. It's pretty much like a dream to kind of like win something like this. And yeah, you just like let yourself like feel like you could do it for a second. And to be honest, like I choked up quite a few times within that 5 miles running towards the end. And then I think I saw my mum and my dad, my brother and his girlfriend, like at the checkpoint before the end. That was like quite overwhelming in a good sense. And then everybody there then at the end in Cardiff Castle grounds, sort of cheering as you're coming in, and you can see the people that you maybe haven't seen in quite a while. There are a few people turned up that I didn't know were going to turn up, and that's it. Then that was it. Like I was really struggling to hold everything back as I crossed the finish line, and there's a few pictures where I definitely didn't hold it all back.
I think that's totally warranted. What have the days been like since then? Because we're a little bit removed from it now, but it must still be kind of sinking in a little bit. And you know, lots of people are asking you to speak, and lots of people are asking you for interviews. And I know there's a few bits and bobs that have come out. It must feel a little bit different. Like you finished races in the past, right? And all this hasn't happened necessarily. Like it must feel a bit weird.
I think it does, but this is yeah, it does, and it definitely hasn't sunk in that like I won this. It really hasn't, and like I've got a really bad memory, and so trying to like
forget you haven't forgot this yet, mate.
No, I've not forgotten that, but I try like sort of just go back through like some of the days and some of the things that had happened to try and like help cement it in my memory. And actually, like, it's really difficult to do, and I'm really struggling to sort of wrap my head around it. And you convince yourself that maybe, I don't know, you're not necessarily deserving of winning it as well, and you get a little bit of like imposter syndrome going on. So yeah, it's definitely not sunk in. Might take a long time to carry on sinking in, but doing things like this, like it's really nice to have the opportunity to kind of talk it through. And then all the social media that goes around it is also quite nice in helping you realize that you've maybe achieved something pretty special.
Yeah, well, mate, you have. And I think imposter syndrome is something that I've spoke to quite a few people about, and that's definitely something in whatever like walk of life, whether it's business or work or a race or whatever, like a lot of people feel. But like you say, when you're in that last 5 miles and you're realizing all the hard work you've done, without that hard work, you wouldn't have got to that position. So that's like why you're there, I guess. And looking back at the race, you mentioned something quite fun, well, quite interesting there, where you said you don't really remember those bits that maybe happened during the race. And I guess because you're so sort of focused on, right, this is the goal, and it sounds like you treated it quite like, I need to do this, and then I need to get to sleep, and then I need to do this, and then I need to do this. It's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle. So when you're putting that jigsaw puzzle together, you're not looking at the overall picture. So like now, I guess you can look back at that picture and think about some of the things you saw and some of the scenery and some of the parts of the course that maybe were unbelievable.
Yeah, but like even those bits, I think I wrote a bit of a blog on this, and I honestly didn't fully take, not even fully, partially take in actually probably any of the route. Like it was very much like, whilst I was pretty smiley like on the run, and like I was trying to sort of chat to people as I went past it, I really wasn't actually taking in much of like the scenery around me. It was very much just like head down, literally concentrating on, especially in the rocky bits and the bits that are uneven underfoot, basically just concentrating on like where every foot's going. And then I'd have like the route on my watch, and it's obviously on the map as well, but I'm just going from like checkpoint to checkpoint, and just, it sounds ridiculous, but like when they say about eating a elephant, like, and taking it bit by bit, like you're basically doing that with something like this. And it was just checkpoint by checkpoint. And I think probably lots of other people had a much better experience of Wales and the race than I did, but I had the opportunity to sort of see Wales and the route when I'd been out doing like the recce runs. So this was all the goals for this and going into this were not really about the scenery as such. It was more about let's see what I can push myself to be able to do.
It's almost like treating a race as like a mathematical equation, isn't it? Like if I do this bit, then I get to this bit, and then I have to do this to get to this, and whatever, like to get to the end goal, which eventually was obviously winning. What's next then? Because this is one big thing that's happened, but it's going to give you a lot of confidence in what you can do. So have you got plans on what's next? And I know it's like only a bit of time removed, but I know the cogs will already be turning.
Yeah, and the training has already started again.
Okay,
now.
good.
So the next thing. So I'm doing the Cheviot Goat in the beginning of December. So yeah, training started yesterday for that. So but an easier week than a typical training week, this one. So yeah, just starting the process again now, building back up for that. That's like 55 miles. And then in December, like late December time, like we're having a little baby. So
oh mate, congratulations.
That might throw a small spanner in the running works, but I'm sure it's going to be a very nice spanner to have to deal with.
Well, at least with a race like the Dragon's Back, you'll have got a bit more used to the sleep deprivation, I would imagine. So it's not going to be such an issue. If somebody's watching this now, mate, and they're thinking, I love this story. I'm thinking of like lacing up my trainers for the first time and going out for a run. Just maybe give them some words of wisdom, if you will. What would you say to somebody that's thinking about lacing up their trainers for the first time?
Don't go on the roads. Go on the trails. There's much better scenery, I think, out there. It depends on what your motivations are, but I think definitely running off-road absolutely trumps running on the road for me. And then the other thing would just be to like go easy on yourself. Like it's very and this is cliche, but it's very easy to like compare yourself to other people, and the fitness levels of other people, the pace of other people, and yeah, just take it like little bit at a time, and then gradually, like, I don't know, increase the distance, increase the number of sessions that you do a week, and just, if you're not enjoying it, just ask yourself like why that is, and maybe reevaluate it and figure out a different approach so that you do enjoy it. I wouldn't be doing any of this if I didn't enjoy doing it. That's one of the main motivators for carrying it on. So I'd say find the thing that you enjoy doing if it is within running.
Massive thank you to James for coming on RunThrough TV. As you will have seen, there are loads of videos on the channel right now, so do make sure you're subscribed to keep up to date with everything that we've got coming here on RunThrough TV. So many more guests lined up, and if you have anyone you'd like to see me have a conversation with, then do stick them in the comments section below. I'll catch you again soon.